The planet Daejeon was a dead place. It was a world of gray dust and black rock. The sky was the color of rust. The wind did not blow. It just whispered through the bones of dead buildings. Once this had been a busy human colony. Now it was a graveyard. It was a place no one wanted, stuck between human space and the territory of the Cathar, a powerful alien race. The two sides had fought here years ago and then left. Now only ghosts and memories remained. Sergeant Park Ji-hoon led his squad through this silence. He was a solid man, not young anymore, with a tired face that had seen too much. His job was to keep his soldiers alive. Today that job felt very hard. They moved in a single file, their heavy boots crunching on the broken ground. Their armored suits were painted in dull colors to blend with the ruins. Each soldier held a rifle, their eyes constantly moving, searching for danger. Behind Ji-hoon was Corporal Lee Hana. She was young and sharp, her eyes missing nothing. She was the squad's scout. Next was Private Kim Min, a big man who carried the squad's heavy weapon. He was strong but nervous, his knuckles white on his gun. Then there was Private Choi Soo-min, small and quiet. She was their tech expert, her attention often on the small screen on her wrist. The last was the youngest, Private Park Jin, Ji-hoon's own nephew. The boy tried to look brave, but Ji-hoon could see the fear in his eyes. Their mission was simple. They were to find one person, a person the Cathar called a battle offender. The Cathar had given the human military pictures and stories. They said this human was a monster, a killer who broke all the rules of war. They said this person had destroyed entire Cathar squads with bare hands and terrible weapons. The data showed scenes of great violence. The mission orders said, locate and detain the target. Consider them extremely dangerous. You stay sharp, Ji-hoon said into his helmet microphone. His voice was a low rumble. The Cathar don't send us on treasure hunts. If they want this person, there's a reason. They moved towards a huge broken structure ahead. It was an old fusion power plant. Its metal towers were twisted and broken like the skeleton of a giant beast. This was where their target was supposed to be hiding. They entered through a giant hole in the wall. Inside it was dark and cold. The only light came from the broken ceiling far above. Fallen pipes and broken machinery littered the floor. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, creating long, moving shadows. Life signs? Ji-hoon asked. Soo-min looked at her wrist screen. Nothing clear, Sergeant. Too much old radiation messing with my sensors, but there's a power source down below. Faint, but stable. They moved deeper into the plant, down a wide ramp that sloped into the earth. The air grew colder. The silence felt heavier. It was so quiet they could hear the sound of their own breathing inside their helmets. Min stumbled over a piece of metal, the loud clang making everyone jump. Sorry, he whispered, his face red inside his helmet. Easy, Min, Ji-hoon said. His own heart was beating fast. He didn't like this. It felt too much like a trap. Hana at the front held up a closed fist. Everyone stopped. She pointed down the corridor. There was a door at the end. A soft green light glowed from its edges. That's the source, Soo-min whispered. The power is coming from behind that door. Ji-hoon moved to the front. He signaled to Min and Jin to take positions on either side of the door. Hana stood ready behind him. Soo-min stayed back, watching her sensors. This is it, Ji-hoon said quietly. On my mark, 3, 2, 1. Min hit the door control. The door slid open with a rusty groan. The room on the other side was a control room from a long time ago. Old computer screens were dark and covered in dust. But in the center of the room, one screen was on, casting a green light. And sitting in a chair in front of the screen was a person. The person turned around. It was a woman. She was small. She looked young, maybe 25. She wore a simple brown environmental suit, old and patched in many places. It had no military markings. Her black hair was cut short. Her face was calm. She did not look surprised to see them. She did not look afraid. She looked at the soldiers pointing rifles at her, and she slowly stood up. She held her hands out, palms open, to show she had no weapon. Ji-hoon was confused. This was the monster? This was the battle offender who supposedly tore apart Cathar warriors? She looked like she couldn't hurt a fly. Identify yourself, Ji-hoon barked, his rifle aimed at her chest. My name is Lee Yuna, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. It was not the voice of a monster. Are you alone? Ji-hoon asked, his eyes scanning the dark room. Yes, she said. I have been alone here for a long time. Hana moved quickly into the room, checking the corners while Min kept his gun on the woman. Clear, Sergeant, Hana said. Search her, Ji-hoon ordered. Hana patted the woman down. She had no weapons, only a small bag on her belt and a data chip hanging from a cord around her neck. No weapons, Sergeant, Hana reported. Ji-hoon lowered his rifle slightly. The other soldiers did the same, but they were still tense. This was not what they had expected. Why are you here, Lee Yuna? Ji-hoon asked. I was waiting, she said. Waiting for what? Waiting for someone to come, she replied. She looked at each of them, her gaze steady. When her eyes met Ji-hoon's, he felt a strange feeling. Her eyes were the darkest brown, almost black. They were not the eyes of a scared girl. They were deep and still like a quiet ocean. They held a knowledge that made Ji-hoon feel uneasy. Are you the one the Cathar call a battle offender? Ji-hoon asked directly. A very small smile touched her lips. It was there and then gone. They call me many things, she said. We are here to take you into custody, Ji-hoon said. You will come with us without resistance. Lee Yuna nodded. I understand. I will come with you. It was too easy. Ji-hoon felt a knot of worry in his stomach. He signaled to Min and Jin. Cuff her. Private Jin stepped forward, pulling a set of plastic restraints from his belt. His hands were shaking. As he reached for her wrists, Lee Yuna looked at him. Her gaze was not angry or threatening. It was almost gentle. Do not be afraid, she said to the young soldier. Jin flinched and finished putting the cuffs on her wrists. He stepped back quickly, his face pale. Ji-hoon looked at this small, calm woman in handcuffs. He looked at the dusty, dead control room. He thought about the Cathar and their stories of a terrible killer. Nothing made sense. The Cathar were warriors. They were proud. Why would they lie? Why would they be so afraid of this one woman that they would ask their enemies to catch her? Move out, Ji-hoon said, pushing his thoughts away. His job was not to understand. His job was to follow orders. They led Lee Yuna out of the control room and back into the dark ruins. She walked quietly between the soldiers, her head held high. She did not look back. As they stepped out of the power plant into the rusty light of the planet, Ji-hoon looked at her again. She was just a woman, but in the vast dead silence of Daejeon, her quiet calm felt more dangerous than any weapon. The journey from the dead planet Daejeon to the compact cruiser Indomitable was a quiet one. Lee Yuna sat in the small transport ship, her hands still bound. She did not speak. She looked out the window at the stars, her face calm. The soldiers around her were nervous. They had expected a fight. They had expected a monster. They had found a quiet woman in an empty room. Sergeant Park Ji-hoon watched her. He could not understand her calmness. If she was innocent, she should be afraid. If she was guilty, she should be angry. But she was neither. She was like a deep pool of still water. He tried to remember the Cathar files. They showed terrible things. They showed fire and death and bodies. It was hard to believe this small woman did those things. But the Cathar were sure, and now his commanders were sure. When the transport ship landed in the hangar of the Indomitable, everything changed. The hangar was huge and bright, filled with the noise of machines and people. Soldiers in clean uniforms stood in straight lines. Officers watched from a high platform. This was a military ship, a place of rules and orders. 2 military police officers came forward. They were big men with hard faces. They did not look at Yuna's eyes. They just took her arms and led her away. Their grip was tight. Ji-hoon and his squad were told to go to the debriefing room. A few hours later, Ji-hoon stood in a clean uniform before a tribunal. It was a formal hearing. The room was plain and gray. There was a long table at the front. 3 officers sat behind it. In the middle was Commander Kim, a man with short gray hair and a stern face. He was known as a tough officer who followed the rules exactly. On one side of the room sat Lee Yuna. She still wore the simple clothes from the planet. Her hands were free now, but 2 guards stood behind her. On the other side was the prosecutor. A young, serious officer named Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon stood in the middle and told his story. He told them how they found the woman. He said she offered no resistance. He said she had no weapons. He answered all their questions truthfully. When he was done, Commander Kim nodded. Thank you, Sergeant. You may wait outside. Ji-hoon left the room. He stood in the hallway, feeling uneasy. He could hear the voices from inside through the speaker on the wall. Next, the prosecutor stood up. Lieutenant Park began to speak. He showed pictures on a large screen. They were the pictures from the Cathar. They showed a place called Serpent's Pass. It was a scene of great destruction. Broken Cathar bodies were everywhere. The trees were burned. The ground was torn apart. The Cathar identification system confirms these are their soldiers, Lieutenant Park said. An entire platoon destroyed. The method matches no known weapon. It is the work of a battle offender. He showed another picture, a Cathar outpost on a moon called Vega 7. It was completely gone. Only a giant crater remained. No survivors. Total annihilation. The Cathar claimed the defendant was responsible. He showed more pictures, more death, more destruction. All of it was linked to Lee Yuna. The Cathar had provided travel records, energy signatures, and witness statements from other Cathar who saw a human fitting her description. The galactic conventions of war exist for a reason, Lieutenant Park said, his voice loud and clear. They protect us all from barbarism. The defendant, Lee Yuna, has broken these conventions. She is a battle offender. She is a danger to all civilized beings. The compact must show that we do not tolerate such monsters. We must hand her over to the Cathar for justice. The room was silent. The evidence looked very bad. Commander Kim turned his cold eyes to Lee Yuna. Lee Yuna, he said, you have heard the charges. How do you plead? Are you guilty of these acts? Yuna looked at the pictures on the screen. She looked at the broken bodies and the burned land. Her face showed no emotion. She did not look away. She stood up. She was so much smaller than everyone else in the room, but her voice was steady. I was at Serpent's Pass, she said. A murmur went through the room. She was admitting it. I was on Vega 7th, she continued. Commander Kim leaned forward. So you confess? Yuna shook her head slowly. I do not confess to the crimes you describe. I was there to observe. To document what I saw. Document what? Lieutenant Park asked, his voice sharp. Document your own brutality? I am a xenobiologist, Yuna said. I study alien life and cultures. I was with a small research team. We were in that sector to study Cathar social structures. We were not soldiers. Your team is dead, Commander Kim stated. The Cathar reports say you killed them when they tried to stop your madness. For the first time, a flicker of pain crossed Yuna's face. It was there for a second, and then it was gone. My team is dead, she agreed, her voice softer. But not by my hand. Then explain the evidence. Commander Kim slammed his hand on the table. Explain how you were present at every single one of these massacres. Yuna was silent for a long moment. She looked at the commanders. She looked at the prosecutor. She seemed to be deciding something. You have their pictures, she said, but you do not have the whole story. You see what they want you to see. That is no answer, Lieutenant Park said. You must provide proof of your innocence. Yuna's calmness finally broke, but not in the way they expected. She did not shout or cry. She smiled. It was a small, cold smile that did not reach her eyes. You stand there in your clean uniform, she said to the prosecutor. You look at their pictures and you believe them. You call me a monster. You call me a battle offender. She took a single step forward. The guards behind her moved to stop her, but Commander Kim waved them back. He was watching her closely. Yuna's voice became very quiet, but every word was clear in the silent room. They named me a battle offender. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. If I were, she said, looking directly at Commander Kim, you'd already be dead. The room froze. Her words were not a threat. They were not said with anger. They were said as a simple, plain fact. Like saying the sky is blue or water is wet. If she was the monster they described, this ship, this room, these people would already be dust. The truth of that was so obvious it was shocking. Lieutenant Park was the first to recover. Are you threatening this tribunal? Yuna turned her dark, calm eyes to him. I am stating a reality. You are looking at the wrong person. You are asking the wrong questions. You should be asking why the Cathar are so afraid of me that they need you to do their work for them. She sat down again, as calm as before. The hearing was over for now. The commanders needed to talk. The guards led her away. Outside in the hallway, Sergeant Ji-hoon had heard everything. He heard the terrible evidence. He heard her strange confession. And he heard her final, chilling words. He thought about the woman on the planet. Her calm eyes. Her lack of fear. He thought about the Cathar, a warrior race begging for help to catch one small human. For the first time, a real doubt entered his mind. What if they were wrong? What if they were all wrong? He looked down the hallway where they had taken Lee Yuna. He knew one thing for sure. Nothing was simple anymore. The silence in Sergeant Park Ji-hun's small room on the Indomitable was heavy. He sat on the edge of his bed staring at the blank gray wall. His mind was a storm. He kept hearing the voice of Lee Yuna in the tribunal room. Her words were clear and calm. If I were, you'd already be dead. It was not the boast of a soldier. It was the simple truth of a scientist stating a fact. A true battle offender, the kind the Cathar described, would not have sat quietly in handcuffs. They would not have walked peacefully onto a transport ship. They would have fought. The ship would be damaged. People would be dead, but nothing had happened. She was in a cell and the Indomitable was quiet. Ji-hun stood up. He could not just sit. He was a soldier. He followed orders. But his job was also to protect people. If they were making a terrible mistake, he had to know. He left his room and walked through the ship's bright corridors. He needed to talk to someone who understood things he did not. He found Corporal Choi Soo-min in the tech lab. The room was filled with the soft glow of computer screens and the quiet hum of machines. Soo-min was sitting at a terminal, her small frame almost hidden behind a large monitor. She was looking at the mission data from Daejeon. She looked up when Ji-hun entered. Her face was serious. Sergeant, I was just reviewing the sensor logs from the planet. And? Ji-hun asked, pulling up a chair. It's strange, Soo-min said, turning her screen so he could see. The Cathar data packet they gave us. It's very clean. Too clean. What do you mean? When we record a battle, there is always mess in the data. Static from weapons fire. Broken signals from damaged equipment. Background radiation. It's never perfect. She pointed to a line of code on her screen. But this Cathar data, it's like a movie. The video and audio are perfect. There is no mess. No interference, Ji-hun frowned. So they cleaned it up? Maybe, Soo-min said. But why? And look at this. She opened another file. It was a video from the Serpent's Pass. It showed a blurry human figure moving with impossible speed, striking Cathar soldiers. The Cathar say this is Lee Yuna. It's too blurry to see her face, Ji-hun noted. Exactly. But that's not the strange part. Look at the energy signatures. Soo-min pulled up a different screen full of graphs and numbers. The weapon used here gives off a specific energy reading. It's a type of plasma disruption. It's not a human weapon. Our guns don't work like that. Are you saying a human didn't do this? I'm saying the weapon that did this isn't one of ours. Soo-min's fingers flew across her keyboard. I'm going to run a deeper analysis. I want to look at the file's metadata. Metadata? It's the information about the information, she explained. Like when a file was created and what machine made it. It's often hidden. Ji-hun watched her work. He did not understand all the technical things, but he trusted Soo-min. She was the best with computers on the ship. After a few minutes, Soo-min leaned back. Her eyes were wide. Sergeant, look at this. On her screen was a string of Cathar symbols. Next to it, the computer had provided a translation. What is it? Ji-hun asked. It's a source tag. Buried deep in the file. She pointed at the translated words. It says, Project Reaper. Field Test 7 data log. The two of them sat in silence. The words hung in the air. Field test? Ji-hun finally said, his voice low. This wasn't a battle. This was a test. Soo-min nodded slowly. They weren't fighting a battle offender. They were testing a new weapon. And they were recording the results. Suddenly, the pieces started to fit together in Ji-hun's mind. Lee Yuna said she was there to observe and document. She wasn't documenting her own crimes. She was documenting theirs. The Cathar were using human colonies as testing grounds for a terrible new weapon. They needed a scapegoat to hide their crime. So they invented the story of the battle offender. They pinned their own atrocities on a lone survivor. They are not hunting a criminal, Ji-hun whispered. They are trying to silence a witness. He stood up quickly. We have to tell Commander Kim. Wait, Soo-min said, her face pale. This is big, Sergeant. This means the Cathar have broken the conventions, not us. If we accuse them with no solid proof, it could start a war. We have the metadata, Ji-hun said. It's just one piece of data. They will say we faked it. We need more. Ji-hun knew she was right. He paced the small room. What about Lee Yuna? She must have proof. She said she was a documentarian. Her data chip, Soo-min said. The one she wore around her neck. They took it from her when she was put in the cell. It's in the evidence locker. Ji-hun made a decision. It was risky. It could end his career. But he could not let an innocent woman be sent to the Qatar for a crime she did not commit. Can you get into the evidence files? Just to see what's on it, without taking it? Sumin bit her lip. She looked nervous. Then she nodded. I can access the system. I can make a copy of the data. No one will know. Do it, Ji-hun said. Sumin worked for another 20 minutes. Finally, she transferred the data to a small portable drive. She handed it to Ji-hun. This is everything from her chip. I haven't looked at it. Ji-hun took the drive. His hand was steady, but his heart was pounding. He went back to his room and locked the door. He plugged the drive into his personal viewer. The first file was a simple ID card. Lee Yuna, Xenobiology and Sociology, Jeju University. It was real. The next file was a video. He pressed play. The video was shaky at first. It was taken from a helmet camera. He could hear Yuna's voice, calm and professional. Log entry Vega 7, day 14. We have set up our observation post. The Qatar outpost is 5 kilometers away. They show no signs of aggression. The video showed a peaceful jungle world. It was beautiful. He fast-forwarded. The next important entry was different. The video was shaky. There were loud alarms in the background. Yuna's voice was tense but still controlled. They found us. They are surrounding the camp. Professor Kwan is trying to make contact. He is waving a white flag. The video showed the research camp. A few people in simple clothes were looking up at the sky. Then dark Cathar ships descended. They did not look like warships. They were smaller, shaped like needles. The Cathar soldiers did not attack with guns. They launched canisters that burst in the air, releasing a dark, shimmering cloud. The cloud moved like something alive. It flowed over the camp. Where it touched the researchers, they did not scream. They just came apart. Their bodies dissolved into dust. It was silent and horrible. The video shook violently as Yuna ran. She was heading for a bunker. She fell inside and sealed the door. The video showed her looking at a sensor screen. It was analyzing the cloud. The readout was clear. It was a nanite swarm, a weapon that broke down organic matter. It was completely forbidden by the galactic conventions. The last part of the video showed the cloud moving away. The camp was gone. Only bare ground remained. There were no bodies, no blood. Just nothing. Yuna's voice was a whisper. They are all gone. The Cathar are not here for conquest. They are here to test their weapon. They used us as their test subjects. I am the only one left. I have to get this evidence to the compact. The video ended. Sergeant Park Ji-hun sat in the dark of his room. He felt cold. He had seen the truth. The Cathar were the real monsters. Lee Yuna was not a battle offender. She was a survivor. And she was right. If she had been what they accused her of, they would all be dead. Now he had the proof. But he did not know who to trust. Sergeant Park Ji-hun sat in the dark for a long time. The images from the data chip played over and over in his mind. The peaceful camp, the dark ships, the shimmering cloud, the people turning to dust. It was worse than any battle he had ever seen. In a battle, there was noise and fire and a chance to fight back. This was just silent death. He knew he had to act. He had the truth in his hand, a small portable drive that felt as heavy as a rock. But who could he give it to? Commander Kim had believed the Cathar without question. The tribunal was ready to send an innocent woman to her death. If he went to them, they might call him a traitor. They might destroy the evidence he thought about his squad. He trusted Corporal Choi Soo-min. She had helped him find the first clue. He also trusted Corporal Lee Hana. She was a good soldier, smart and honest. The others, Min and his nephew Jin, were good men, but they were young and followed orders without question. He could not risk involving them yet. He left his room and found Lee Hana in the mess hall. She was sitting alone, pushing food around her plate. She looked up when he approached. "Sergeant," she said, "sit with me, Hana. I need to talk to you." His voice was low and serious. She followed him to a quiet corner. He showed her the portable drive. "This is from Lee Yuna's data chip. Soo-min copied it for me." Hana's eyes narrowed. "Sergeant, that's against regulations. We could be in serious trouble." "I know," Ji-hun said. "But after you see this, you will understand why I had to." He played the video for her on his small viewer. He watched her face as she saw the truth of Vega 7. He saw her eyes widen in horror. He saw her hand go to her mouth. When the video ended, she was pale. "The Cathar," she whispered. "They did this?" And they blamed her? Ji-hun nodded. They called her a monster to hide their own crime. They need her silenced. Hana was a soldier. She believed in the chain of command. But she also believed in justice. This was not justice. This was a lie. What do we do? She asked. We need to talk to her, Ji-hun said. We need to hear it directly from her. We need a full story. Getting into the secure detention block was not easy. But Sergeant Ji-hun was a respected soldier. The guard on duty knew him. I just need 5 minutes, Ji-hun told the guard. Commander Kim wants a final confirmation of her story before the transfer. The guard looked unsure. I have orders, Sergeant. No one sees the prisoner without the commander's direct approval. Lee Hana stepped forward. It's on the commander's behalf. Do you really want to be the one who delays his order? It will be quick. The guard hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. I'll be watching. The cell door slid open. Lee Yuna was sitting on a small bench. The room was bare with only a bed and a sink. She looked up as they entered. She did not seem surprised to see them. Sergeant Ji-hun did not waste time. He held up the portable drive. We saw your recording. From Vega 7. Yuna looked at the drive, then at their faces. She saw that they knew. The calm mask she wore did not break, but her shoulders relaxed just a little. It was as if she had been carrying a great weight and now she could share a small part of it. So you know, she said softly. Tell us everything, Hana said. We want to help you. Yuna took a slow breath. My team was on Vega 7 for 6 months. We were studying the local plant life and how the Cathar outpost interacted with the environment. We were peaceful. We never bothered them. She looked at the blank wall, seeing the past. Then one day their ships came. Not their war fleet. These were different. Scientific ships, we thought. They launched canisters. We thought it was some kind of atmospheric test. Her voice became flat, like she was reciting a report. Professor Kwan went out to talk to them. He had his hands up. He was smiling. The cloud touched him first. He just dissolved. There was no sound. The others ran, but the cloud was too fast. It flowed over them. In less than a minute, the entire camp was gone, just clean ground. Why did they do it? Ji-hun asked. My suit's sensors recorded everything, Yuna said. The cloud was a nanite swarm, a weapon that breaks down organic material for easy disposal. It is cheap and efficient, but it is slow. It needs testing on live subjects to improve its speed. They were testing it on us. She looked at them, her dark eyes finally showing the pain she held inside. I hid in a geological survey bunker. My suit's seals were good. The nanites could not get in. I watched on my sensors as they swept the area. They were collecting their data. They were not looking for survivors. They did not care. When they left, I came out. There was nothing left, just me and the data. The Cathar must have realized a signal was broadcast from the bunker, Hana said. They realized someone saw everything. Yuna nodded. Yes, they could not let that evidence get out. So they created the story of the battle offender. They used old battle footage and altered it. They made me into a monster. That way, if I was ever found, my own people would hand me over to them. Or kill me themselves. They would never believe my story. The pieces were all there. It was a perfect, cruel plan. The Cathar got to test their illegal weapon, and they used human soldiers to clean up their only witness. The tribunal is convinced, Ji-hun said grimly. They are making arrangements to transfer you to the Cathar. I know, Yuna said. She was calm again. The moment of pain was gone. They will not let me live. The truth will die with me. Not if we can help it, Lee Hana said firmly. We have the evidence now. We have to show it to Commander Kim. Yuna looked at Hana, then at Ji-hun. She seemed to be measuring their resolve. You are good soldiers. You believe in your system. But your commander, he is a man who follows orders. The order is to hand me over. The evidence may not be enough to change his mind. The Cathar are powerful. Accusing them is dangerous. She's right, Ji-hun said to Hana. We need a better plan. We can't just walk in. The guard's voice came over the intercom. Time's up, Sergeant. Ji-hun looked at Yuna one last time. We will try. I give you my word. Yuna gave a small, sad smile. Thank you, Sergeant. But be careful. The Cathar did not go to all this trouble just to let the truth escape now. They are watching. As the cell door closed, Ji-hun felt a new kind of fear. She was not afraid for herself. She was warning them. The danger was not over. It was just beginning. The plan was a desperate one. Sergeant Ji-hun and Corporal Hana decided they would go to Commander Kim together. They would show him the evidence. They would make him see the truth. They hoped his duty to justice was stronger than his duty to orders. It was a thin hope, but it was all they had. They walked quickly through the bright, clean corridors of the Indomitable. Soldiers and crew members passed them, going about their normal duties. No one knew that two of their own were carrying a secret that could change everything. Ji-hun held the data drive tightly in his pocket. His hand was sweating. They reached the command level. The hallway here was quieter. The walls were a darker gray. Two guards stood outside the commander's ready room. "I need to see Commander Kim," Ji-hun said to the guard. "It's urgent." "It's about the prisoner." The guard shook his head. "The commander is in a secure briefing, Sergeant. He cannot be disturbed." "This cannot wait," Hana said, her voice firm. "It concerns the security of this ship." The guard was about to answer when a low, piercing alarm began to blare throughout the ship. A red light flashed in the hallway. Whoop, whoop, whoop. "Battle stations. All hands to battle stations," a voice shouted from the speakers. "Unidentified contacts emerging from warp." The guards immediately forgot about Ji-hun and Hana. They ran towards their posts. The hallway filled with the sound of running feet and shouting. Ji-hun and Hana looked at each other. Their plan was ruined. They ran to the nearest viewport. Outside, in the blackness of space, 3 ships dropped out of light speed. They were not human ships. They were angular and dark, shaped like jagged teeth. Cathar warships. "They found us," Hana whispered. On the bridge, Commander Kim was shouting orders. "Shields up. Power to weapons, hail them. Ask them their intention." A young officer at the communication console looked up, his face pale. "Sir, they are not responding to hails. They are powering their weapons." The first blast hit the Indomitable. The whole ship shook violently. The lights flickered. Ji-hun and Hana were thrown against the wall. "They're attacking," someone yelled. Another blast hit. This one was closer. An alarm shrieked from a damaged section. The ship was built for peacekeeping, not for a fight with 3 Cathar hunters. It was outgunned. Commander Kim's face was hard. "Return fire! Target their lead ship." The Indomitable's cannons fired, bright bolts of energy shooting into the dark. They hit the Cathar ship's shields, which glowed brightly but held. The Cathar ship fired back. A torpedo slammed into the Indomitable's side. The force of the explosion threw people to the floor. Smoke filled the bridge. The lights flickered again, then stayed dim. Emergency lighting cast a red glow over everything. "They're targeting our engines," the helmsman reported. "They're trying to disable us, not destroy us." Another voice, tight with fear, called out from the sensor station. "Sir, I'm reading a boarding craft. It has launched from the lead ship. It's on an intercept course. It's heading for the detention block." The bridge went silent for a moment. Everyone understood. "They're not here for the ship," Commander Kim said, his voice grim. "They're here for her." In her cell, Lee Yuna felt the ship shudder under the attacks. She did not need to hear the alarms to know what was happening. She had been expecting this. The Cathar would not risk her talking. They needed to be sure. She stood up. She walked to the door of her cell and placed a hand against the cold metal. She could feel the vibrations of the battle. She knew what came next. They would board the ship. They would come for her. They would kill her and take her data chip. Then the truth would be lost forever. She thought about Sergeant Ji-hun and Corporal Hana. They were good people. They had tried to help. But they were not ready for this. The Cathar were. The ship shook again, harder this time. The lights in her cell went out, replaced by a dim red emergency light. She could hear the distant sound of metal tearing. The boarding craft had attached itself to the hull. It was starting. In the hallway outside the bridge, Ji-hun pulled Hana to her feet. The sounds of battle were all around them. "The detention block," Ji-hun shouted over the noise. "They're going for her. We have to stop them." Hana yelled back. They started running. They had to get to the lower decks. The lifts were not working. They would have to use the emergency ladders. It would be a dangerous journey through a damaged ship. As they ran, they passed crew members fighting fires and helping the wounded. The ship was hurt. The air smelled of smoke and electricity. They finally reached a ladder shaft and climbed down. When they reached the level of the detention block, the damage was worse. Wires hung from the ceiling. A small fire burned in a corner. The air was thin and cold. They moved carefully, their rifles ready. The normal sounds of the ship were gone here. It was quiet. Too quiet. They turned a corner and saw the reason for the quiet. The outer wall of the corridor was torn open. A giant metal tube was connected to the hole. It was a boarding umbilical. And standing in the corridor were 5 Cathar warriors. They were huge, taller than a man, covered in thick, dark chitinous armor. They had 4 arms. 2 held heavy rifles and 2 held sharp, wicked-looking blades. Their faces were a mass of sharp mandibles and black, compound eyes. They had already killed the 2 guards. The guards lay on the floor, not moving. The lead Cathar turned its head. It saw Ji-hoon and Hana. It let out a harsh clicking sound. It raised its rifle. Ji-hoon and Hana fired first. Their plasma bolts hit the Cathar's armor, but it was too thick. The bolts just scorched the surface. The Cathar fired back. A blast of green energy hit the wall next to Ji-hoon's head, melting the metal. "We can't stop them," Hana shouted, firing again. "Our guns are too weak." They were soldiers, but they were outmatched. The Cathar were built for this. They began to advance, their heavy feet clanking on the deck. They were heading for Lee Yuna's cell. Ji-hoon felt a surge of despair. They had failed. The Cathar were here and they were going to win. He looked at the Cathar warriors, then down the corridor towards the cell. He saw the cell door was still closed. Lee Yuna was still inside. He remembered her words. Her calm, certain words. "If I were, you'd already be dead." He suddenly understood. They were all looking at this wrong. They saw a victim in a cell. But Lee Yuna was not just a witness. She was the only one who knew exactly what they were facing, and she had been waiting. The Cathar Centurion led its warriors down the corridor. It ignored the 2 human soldiers. Their weak weapons were no threat. Its mission was simple: enter the cell, terminate the witness, and retrieve the data chip. The humans would blame the death on the battle. It was a clean plan. Sergeant Ji-hoon fired again. The plasma bolt sparked harmlessly off the Centurion's shoulder armor. It was like throwing a pebble at a tank. He felt a terrible helplessness. They were going to walk right past him and kill her. Then a new sound cut through the chaos. It was the sharp hiss of a door sliding open. The door to Lee Yuna's cell was open. She stood in the doorway. She was not trying to run. She had used the battle's chaos and the drop in power to override the simple lock. She stood there calm and small, facing the 5 giant Cathar warriors. In her hand, she held the data chip on its cord. The Centurion stopped. Its black eyes focused on her. It made a low clicking sound of triumph. It raised its rifle, aiming at her head. Yuna did not look at Ji-hoon or Hana. She looked only at the Centurion. She spoke, and her voice was clear and steady, but now it was loud. She spoke in the guttural language of the Cathar. "You named me a battle offender," she said. The words were strange and harsh coming from her. The Centurion froze, its weapon still raised. It was surprised she knew its language. "You came here to silence the witness," Yuna continued, her voice like ice. "You thought I was hiding. You thought I was afraid." She took a single step forward. The Cathar warriors tightened their grip on their weapons. "I was not hiding," she said. "I was waiting. I have a reply to your lies." With her free hand, she pointed at a wall panel near the Cathar. It was a maintenance terminal for the ship's environmental systems. "You should have killed me on Vega 7, she said. Then her fingers moved. She wasn't typing on a keyboard. She was using a small device she had pulled from her sleeve, pointing it at the terminal. Her fingers flew across its surface. The Centurion understood the danger too late. It roared and fired its weapon. The green energy bolt never reached her. At that moment, Yuna finished her command. The ship's computer spoke in a flat, automated voice. "Emergency decompression protocol. Sector 7. All personnel evacuate." Huge, thick emergency doors slammed down from the ceiling, sealing the end of the corridor where the Cathar had boarded. It trapped the Cathar boarding party in the section with Yuna, Ji-hoon, and Hana. Then, with a deafening roar, the outer wall of the corridor blew out. The Cathar Centurion was pulled off its feet. It let out a sharp screech as it was yanked towards the torn open wall. Its warriors flailed, their claws scraping against the floor, finding no grip. The air became a hurricane, sucking everything out into the cold, airless vacuum of space. Ji-hoon and Hana were thrown backwards, but they had been further away. They grabbed onto a sturdy pipe, holding on for their lives. The wind screamed past them. They watched, stunned, as the 5 Cathar warriors were pulled out through the hole into the silent, starry blackness. In less than 5 seconds, they were gone. The roaring stopped. The emergency doors had sealed the breach, saving the rest of the ship. The corridor was quiet again. The air was gone, but the artificial gravity held. Ji-hoon's ears popped. He could not hear anything in the vacuum. He looked at Hana. Her face was white with shock. Then he looked at Lee Yuna. She was still standing. She had anchored herself to the doorframe of her cell. Her short hair was floating in the zero atmosphere. She looked out at the hole in the ship, at the stars beyond. Her face was calm. She had not killed them with a gun or a bomb. She had used the ship itself. She had used physics. She turned and looked at Ji-hun and Hana. She pointed to an emergency locker on the wall. Ji-hun understood. He pulled it open and took out 3 oxygen masks. He put one on, then gave one to Hana. He floated carefully over to Yuna and gave her the 3rd. He activated his mask's radio. "Can you hear me?" Yuna's voice came back, calm as ever. "Yes, Sergeant. What did you do?" Hana asked, her voice shaking. "I gave them their answer," Yuna said. "They called me a monster of violence. I showed them I am just a scientist. I observed their weakness. They need air. This ship has walls. It was a simple equation." On the bridge, Commander Kim was trying to understand what had happened. The Cathar ships had suddenly stopped firing. Their boarding craft was detached and floating dead in space. "Sir, the boarding party, their life signs are gone. All of them," the sensor officer reported. "I'm reading a localized decompression in the detention block. Get me a visual," Kim ordered. A screen flickered to life showing the corridor from a security camera. It showed Lee Yuna standing calmly with an oxygen mask, next to Sergeant Ji-hun and Corporal Hana. It showed the hole in the hull and the empty corridor where the Cathar had been. Commander Kim stared, unable to process what he was seeing. Then another officer spoke up. "Sir, the Cathar ships are powering their warp drives." "They're leaving." The Cathar had seen it too. They're perfect soldiers. Their silent killers had been defeated not by weapons but by a locked door and an open window. Their witness was not only alive, she was more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Their mission was a total failure. As the Cathar ships vanished, a new transmission came in. It was not from the Cathar. It was being broadcast from inside the Indomitable. On every screen on the bridge and on every channel the ship could send, a video began to play. It was the video from Vega 7, the peaceful camp, the dark ships, the shimmering cloud, the dissolving people. Lee Yuna's calm voice providing the terrible commentary. Yuna had broadcast the truth to the Cathar fleet and to every human listening post in range. The secret was out. Later, when the ship was safe and the air had been restored, Commander Kim stood in the repaired corridor. He looked at Lee Yuna. She was no longer in cuffs. She stood beside Sergeant Ji-hun and Corporal Hana. Kim did not know what to say. You saved the ship," he finally managed. Yuna shook her head. "No, I saved the truth. The ship was just the tool." She looked out through the reinforced window at the stars. "They thought they could silence me with a lie. They were wrong. Now the whole galaxy knows what they did. That is my reply. She was not a soldier. She was not a battle offender. She was a witness who had refused to be silenced. And her message was now echoing everywhere.